Welcome back to my channel. I am Greg Allen F1. Let's talk about Alex Albon, another Grand Prix in the books in the Portuguese Grand Prix, and he has become the center of discussion once again in the Formula One world, and for all the wrong reasons. So in this video, I want to go over Alex Albon's 2019, Alex Albon's 2020, and I know I've done a comparison of him to other drivers on this channel. I just want to focus on Alex Albon and talk about why I think he's in some trouble at Red Bull now, and why they probably are looking on the outside to bring in someone to replace him. And I want to show why that might be the case based on his driving stats and where he may have driven himself out of a ride at Red Bull. So we take a look. He takes over the ride in 2019, midway through the season, well documented in that situation. Has a bit of an outlier, and that's a word I'm going to use a lot in this video, is outlier, of a situation where he qualifies 14th, but what a drive he has in his first run in the Red Bull. Comes up to 5th place. And that's going to start a streak pretty much all season long of Alex Albon having really, really good, strong finishes in this race car with maybe only a couple outliers in the whole 2019 season. Everything was going positively and headed in the right direction for him, headed into 2020. So through here, he pretty much finishes 5th or 6th almost every single Grand Prix. Has a 4th, a little bit excelling expectations in that one. And has the 114th in Brazil last year. Would have podiumed that race if it were not for Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton gets the penalty, of course, takes Albon out. And boy, would that race come back in hindsight to be such a big deal for Alex Albon and possibly his Red Bull career. Qualifying-wise, he's doing pretty solid again. He's in that 5th, 6th place almost every week with a few outliers. His first race, a 14th, which of course, pretty hard situation to just come right into the Red Bull. Has a really bad 19th. And that's about it. Other than that, his qualification's really good. Overall, 8.4 average qualifying in the Red Bull in 2019, 6.2 finish. Things are looking really good. With a full season, we're thinking, wow, Alex Albon might be the real deal. Red Bull got this one right. Then we get to 2020. Really good qualifying effort right out of the bat in Austria. And then we have another Lewis Hamilton sighting. So again, Albon looks like he's going to get his first career podium. Has the incident in a complete mirror image of what happened in Brazil, gets taken out, finishes the race 13th. But it's not such a big deal. We're still looking at Alex Albon being pretty consistent. That's an outlier. This was an outlier. That was an outlier. Things are, Red Bull has a strong argument of these outlier situations until recently. So we take a look at it. 4th place, 5th place, 8th, 5th, 8th, 6th. No worse than 8th place. Red Bull's having some issues in some of these races. Verstappen looks good. But Albon's pretty consistent on the running order. Even when he has bad qualifying, like 13th here, he comes back and finishes 5th. He's looking okay and solid, and they're just looking how to get that little extra bit of speed to where he's in that 3rd to 4th place conversation rather than that 5th or 8th place conversation. And it's interesting that he was under pressure even in this section of the season, but not that much pressure. Qualifying, though, doesn't go as well for him this year. His qualifying efforts, 13th, 12th, and 9th, were not solid, but then he corrects it with a 6th and 5th. But this little boxed in area is the last 5 Grand Prix, and this is where I think Alex Albon might have driven himself out of a seat at Red Bull. And it's really unfortunate to see, but literally the wheel is coming off the axle in this section of his career and in this 2020 season. So qualifies 9th, finishes 15th, an outlier again, right? At this point, we're still looking at this without there saying, hey, 13th, 15th, but he's been consistent the rest of them. The problem is that he's going to have a couple more races like that. He responds right after that 15th, and of course that is a Grand Prix that Pierre Gasly wins, so he needed a big week, gets a big week, qualifies 4th, finishes 3rd, and now everyone's talking at this point that, hey, Alex Albon answered the questions, looks good, finally gets a good qualifying, gets that podium, and that should have been what saved his career at Red Bull and what saved his season, right? Well, unfortunately wrong. Next week he comes back, qualifies 10th, finishes 10th, qualifies 5th, another good qualifying effort, but has a really unfortunate timing for his first retirement in Red Bull. And then last week, qualifies 6th at the Portuguese Grand Prix, and really does not have a good race and finishes 12th. And really, if we look at these last 2 Grand Prix, they retired him from 2 weeks ago. I mean, realistically, when I look at that Grand Prix, he got retired because he was really having a bad race. Everything was snowballing on top of it, and it was Alex Albon's worst race in Formula One, by far. And he follows that up by losing 6 positions and not really looking like he was a threat to getting the points at all for Red Bull. and he gets lapped by Max Verstappen. So really, you got that podium in there, and you would think under normal circumstances, and certainly when it happened, that podium is going to turn around the story and the narrative of Alex Albon. But instead, for the last 5 races, he's finished 10th, 15th, a retirement, and 12th. And now it's not these little outliers here. That's becoming the norm over the last 5 races. A really, really bad time for this to be happening for Alex Albon. The driver he's going to be compared to in most situations is Max Verstappen, but in his career it's going to be Pierre Gasly because of that switch last year. And Pierre Gasly has looked awesome, and it has well exceeded expectations, and he's done it over these last 5 Grand Prix a lot. And at the same time, the pressure is just mounted on Alex Albon, and this is not a good time of the season for this to be happening. If this happened in the beginning of the season, you reverse this, Red Bull has a really strong argument. He's turning the corner. He's looking good. We're headed on the right path, but that's not the case now. He's trending the wrong way, and that's not a good thing when you have Nico Hulkenberg, who's coming in the Racing Point and having fantastic races there. Checo Perez, who is a lame duck driver over at Racing Point himself, and has finished in the points every race he's had a chance to race, and he's really finished in the top 5 every race that he's had a chance to race and not been spun out in the first lap. So Red Bull's now looking at this situation. They've said they're not going to take Gasly and put him back in the seat, but they've also now come out and for the first time all season in the last 2 weeks said Alex Albon is racing for his seat. Christian Horner, who has been very supportive of Alex Albon through the first half of the season, is now saying, yes, he is absolutely racing for his ride, and he absolutely wants him to prove that he can race in that Red Bull and win that ride, but we know for a fact that his seat isn't guaranteed at this point. That's the pressure now has boiled over to where the team principal is saying this driver needs to prove himself if he wants to be in a Red Bull seat next year. And what a bad time for this block of 5 races to have. And how interesting is it that in the beginning of the season we said Albon gets a podium, he'll be fine. Well, he gets it, but the other 4 of the 5 races in that section were horrendous for him. A really bad retirement, 10th, 15th, 12th, and things are looking very poorly. His average qualifying for 2020 is a 7.6, which is an improvement on 2019. But his finish is an 8.1, so he's 2 grid places off of where he was 1 year ago, basically. And unfortunately for him, this is the worst time in his career to be going into what I would call a bit of a slump. And you can call it maybe the pressure or whatever it might be, a really bad time for Alex Albon to be heading the wrong way. And I really do fear for him because at this point, looking at Gasly getting the ride for AlphaTauri not being called up, and some of the drivers from outside the Red Bull camp, and more importantly, some of the drivers in the Red Bull camp that are in F2 and F3, I really don't know how Alex Albon has a ride in Formula 1 next year if he doesn't keep his Red Bull ride. So this guy is now not only racing for his Red Bull career, he's racing for his Formula 1 career at this point. And it could not be coming at a worse time that he's having this major slump that's no longer an outlier. His overall qualifying is 8th, and his overall finish is a 7.3, and the bottom line is those are AlphaTauri numbers at this point. They're not Red Bull numbers. And that's something that is a harsh reality of Formula 1, but a really harsh reality of Red Bull racing. And I personally think that Alex Albon is going to lose a seat, and I think that he races himself out of that seat with the pressure in these last 5 Grand Prix, despite having a podium. And, it's very sad to see. I really hope that Alex Albon, he's got 5 races left, maybe. He's got 5 races left to completely turn it around. The problem for Alex Albon now is that these type of results, which were solid and consistent and allowed Red Bull to give him some support, are not going to be good enough to keep him keep him in that Red Bull seat now. It needs to be better than what he has already done. And if the last 5 races are any indication, with the exception of that podium, he hasn't really been shown that he's been able to do that. He's going to need the podium at least 1 more time this year, probably twice in my opinion, to keep that ride, and not fall past, maybe 7th, 8th place in those Grand Prix. If he has any more Grand Prix where he's finishing out the points, I really don't see how Albon has a ride next year. I hope I'm wrong. He's a really good young kid. I think he's got a ton of talent, and I was rooting for him to do well. I obviously didn't like what happened with Pierre Gasly, and I think that Red Bull didn't do right by Gasly. But I was rooting for Alex Albon to take that opportunity and run with it, and it looked in 2019 like that's exactly what he was going to do. But you really have to look back at those 2 incidents with Lewis Hamilton as maybe being career-defining for Alex Albon, unfortunately. If he podiums in both of those races, we're talking about a driver with 3 podiums and maybe just some issues with the Red Bull equipment right now that they need to fix for him. Instead, we're looking at a driver that, hey, can he get it done? And it doesn't look like he can. So, unfortunately for Alex Albon, everything going wrong for him at the exact wrong time. But we'll see. 5 races left. Maybe. And I do want to stress on that maybe, because if Red Bull has another driver that they want to bring in there, a Checo Perez or Nico Hülkenberg, especially Hülkenberg, they might consider making that move with a race or two to go in the season so that they have some experience with that driver going in the next year. It's not past them to do that. I do believe he'll get the 5 races, but you never know. Crazier things have happened, and it is 2020. So, what do you think? Will Alex Albon be in a Red Bull next year? Do you think and agree with me that he's kind of raced himself out of that seat these last 5 races? Maybe he turns it around, but I think he's got to do something really special over the next 5 races, or I think he might be out of Formula 1 next year. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, please consider giving it a subscription and a like, and I'll see you in the next video.